Good evening, everyone. I'm Ankit, and please fasten your seatbelts because this is Daily News Simplified of 7th of October. Now, as you can see from this slide, we'll be discussing five important articles which we have picked up from today's newspaper. Now, the first article that we have taken up, as you can see, appeared in the Indian Express op-ed section, and this op-ed is written by a member of Niti Aayog on Ayushman Bharat scheme. Now, this news article, it is important from GS paper to syllabus because the syllabus highlights government policies and interventions for development of various sectors and issues that have been arising out of the design and implementation. Also, questions related to health sector have been frequently asked in the mains examination, which you can see here. So in this article or in this discussion, we'll be discussing Ayushman Bharat scheme. Now, Ayushman Bharat scheme has two components. First is establishment of health and wellness center that under the scheme, government wants to establish or to refurbish almost 1,50,000 health and wellness center in addition to a health insurance scheme which is called as Jan Arogya Yojana. Now, under this health insurance scheme, the facility to obtain treatment from any hospital has been provided to a large beneficiary base. Now, for example, if any poor person faces a medical condition, now afraid of this fact that poor person might have to spend a large amount of money to get themselves treated, and it also results into them moving into a poverty line. So, cognizant of this fact, the government highlighted that no need to worry that the government has brought a health insurance scheme specifically for this large beneficiary base, and this is what is Pradhanmantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is a component of Ayushman Bharat. Now, this scheme has a large beneficiary base. Now, the beneficiaries of this scheme amounts to almost 12 crore families, which is equal to 55 crore people. Now, these people belong to economically weaker and marginalized section, and they are being identified from socio-economic caste census of the year 2020, 2011. Now, only last month, the beneficiary base of this scheme was extended further. That in addition to these poor and marginalized families, the benefits of this scheme was also extended to all these senior citizens of our country who are over and above 70 years of age. Now the amount which have been ensured under this scheme, it is rupees 5 lakh per family, and this amount is available per year. So this 5 lakh amount of money is available to every family and also to senior citizens of more than 70 years of age. Now, this scheme provides a comprehensive cover. And what do I mean by comprehensive cover? That is, it covers hospitalization in both secondary as well as tertiary healthcare facilities in the country. Now, this covers not just hospitalization but also pre and post hospitalization treatment, also. That is, 3 days worth of pre-hospitalization charges as well as 15 days worth of post-hospitalization charges are also covered under this scheme, and the benefits, that is the 5 lakh rupee cover, is available on a portable basis. For example, if one member of the family is working in Delhi, he or she will be can avail the benefit of this scheme in addition to rest of the family members who reside in, say, states such as Bihar or UP. That means, irrespective of where you are located or where you're separated from the family, the benefits of this scheme are available to all the members of the family. Also, this scheme provides a wider coverage that not just public hospitals are covered, but also private hospitals are covered. And total amount of hospitals which are impaneled under the scheme is more than 30,489 hospitals to be precise. So out of these 30,489 hospitals, 44% of hospitals are privately owned hospitals. And more than 1900 various medical treatments can be insured under this scheme. That is why I said the benefits of this scheme is quite wide. That not just you go to private and public hospitals, but more than 1900 treatments can be availed by the beneficiaries of this scheme. Now, the main intention of the government was to catalyze the infrastructure development, not just in urban, but also in semi-urban areas of the country, because you can understand the government is providing demand for healthcare services through this scheme, and this demand will automatically be fulfilled by not just public but also by privately owned hospitals. Further, this scheme moves India towards the sustainable development goal target of 3.8. Now this target highlights that every country should aim to provide its citizens with universal health coverage. So you can understand when 55 crore economically poor people, as well as more than 6 crore senior citizens, which is 61 crore beneficiaries, are availing treatment. So you can understand India is moving towards universal health coverage, that is ensuring most people of our country are covered under health insurance scheme. So these were the features and significance of Ayushman Bharat. Now let us understand what are the challenges that the government is facing in design and in implementation of this scheme. Now the first challenge relates to availability of healthcare services. Now in last slide I highlighted that more than 30,489 hospitals are available to the beneficiary of this scheme. But you can understand the beneficiaries now include almost 61 crore people. So per 1000 people of 1 lakh people, there are just 1.28 hospitals. So which is not enough for a country of our size. So this is what relates to availability of health services. That is, despite significant improvement, only 1.28 hospital is available for 1 lakh people in India. The second problem is the insufficient amount of quality control. Because first of all, I highlighted that more than 30,400 hospitals are there. But out of these more than 30,000 hospitals, only 309 hospitals are quality certified by the government. So because of this, the quality of services which are provided by hospitals are insufficient. Now, also, there's another challenge, that is with access of equity in services. Now, it is quite natural that availability of hospitals is much more prominent in urban areas or in metropolitan cities. That is, you have many options available with you. But when a beneficiary belongs to semi-urban and rural areas, the distance between him and her and the hospital is quite huge. This is what inequity means. That is, the facilities or access of healthcare services are not equitably available to all. Also, there are differences in healthcare infrastructure between, say, developed states like southern states and less developed states, such as states located on eastern part of our country. So, any beneficiary, if he or she belongs to, say, states such as Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, they may not have that good a treatment available to them compared to people belonging to states such as Karnataka and Tamil Nadu that have a good healthcare infrastructure. So this is what inequity in excess means. Also, I highlighted in this scheme that the scheme is available only in the cases of hospitalization. However, almost 40 to 80% of medical treatment which is done in India, it is based on outpatient care. What is outpatient care? That whenever a patient visits a healthcare facility and he or she gets treated by the doctor without the need to be admitted into the hospital, it is called outpatient care, and the benefits of this outpatient care is not available under Ayushman Bharat scheme. So this leaves out a significant chunk of people who cannot avail the benefits of this scheme. Also, the scheme faced several implementation challenges also. Now, as you can understand, the cost of treatment, say in private hospital versus public hospital, is quite different. For example, a heart surgery in a private hospital can cost as much as 10 lakh rupees, whereas the same service is available in public hospitals at say 1 or 2 lakh rupees. So this is a significant difference. And this estimation of cost is a huge challenge by the government. Also, it has been seen that beneficiaries in general prefer private hospitals because of their better services. And because of these preferences for private hospitals who charge more amount of money per procedure, this has led to several implementation challenges and also delays in transferring or reimbursing the money to these hospitals. Further, it was also seen that many hospitals and beneficiaries of the scheme, they are involved in fraudulent transactions. For example, if a beneficiary can enroll his or her friend into the scheme who is not otherwise eligible for the scheme, and in connivance with the hospital staff and card holders, the hospital can do healthcare services even on non beneficiaries of the scheme. Further, it has been seen that hospitals, in order to avail the benefits of this scheme, they enroll patients who otherwise would have been done with outpatient care, and they admit them into the hospitals just so to increase their bills and available or make themselves available to get the benefit of this scheme. So these are the examples of fraudulent transactions that happen under the scheme. So these are the set of challenges that are faced in the implementation and design of this scheme. And with this, we quickly move to suggestive way forward on how to improve this scheme further. Now, the first suggestion in this regard is to enhance the quality and accreditation of the already registered hospital. Because in this slide, I highlighted that out of more than 30,000 scheme, only 309 hospitals are quality certified. So we need to enhance the qualities of the hospital, and this can be done by enlisting the help of National Accreditation Board of Hospitals in India. Further, this quality enhancement can also be done in a better manner by utilizing the data and conducting a real-time analysis of this particular data. Because this data will help us understand what kind of services are more available to the people, and people are preferring what kind of services, and it will facilitate a continuous analysis and churn in the scheme. Also, as I've highlighted, the benefits of this scheme are not equitable across the country. Hence, we need to make the benefits of the scheme more equitable so as to make it available in a better manner across the length and breadth of the country. And doing this will ensure that advantages of this scheme are universally attainable, whether you're living in a less developed state or you're living in a urban area. Further, there is also a need to consolidate healthcare spendings of both union as well as state government. Because you can understand this scheme is financed by both union and state government. However, most there are some state governments who have an independent health insurance scheme. So instead of having an independent health insurance scheme, both union and state government can consolidate their healthcare spending and converge if exists any parallel scheme in this regard. Further, healthcare, uh, the responsibility of healthcare is now given to the state government because healthcare is mentioned in the state list of our constitution. Hence, there have been suggestions that there is a need to move healthcare into the concurrent list. And why is there such a suggestion? Because currently, more than one third of the spending on healthcare sector is done by union government. So, because of their increased spending by the union government, we should warrant an enhanced intervention by the union government to ensure equitable distribution, consolidation of healthcare spending, and also continuously improving the quality of the healthcare services. So this was all for the first article of the day, that was Ayushman Bharat. And with this, we move to second article of the day, which relates to or which appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Now, this article highlights that the Vice President of our country, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, he has highlighted that judiciary and legislature, they have no executive authority. Now, if you look closely at this article, it deals with the provision called separation of powers. Now, this separation of power topic, it is given in the GS paper 2 syllabus, which you can see it directly. And also, questions on this very topic have been appearing in mains almost every year. Case in point, there was a direct question on separation of power in India in the year 2019. Now, on a very basic level, let me explain you what is separation of power. Now, the power of any state for that matter is not given just to one authority. Rather, this power is distributed among various organs of the state. For example, you understand any country or any state requires to make laws, and for that law to be implemented, there needs to be implementation of the law. And if any issue arises out of making of laws and implementation of laws, you need to adjudicate between the bodies as well. Sorry, let me change the spelling. So, the matters related to making of laws, implementation of laws, and adjudication of laws are three separate functions. Now, ideally, in any non democratic state, all these powers are given to just one body. But India is a democratic country, right? Which has a written constitution. So these three functions of a state are given to three different organs. For example, legislature, that is parliament and state legislature, they are responsible for making laws. Whereas the executive, it is responsible for implementation or execution of laws. Understood? And if any issue arises out of drafting laws or implementing laws, there is a separate body called judiciary, which is manned by judges who can adjudicate between these issues. Now, Indian constitution directly or explicitly does not highlight separation of power. But if you look closely into various provision, it highlights various separation in functions of various organs. For example, in case of legislature, there is this Article 122 and 212, which highlights that the proceedings of Parliament of India as well as state legislatures cannot be inquired into any court of law. Further, members of the legislations, they are prohibited from holding any office of profit of the government, which means they are prohibited from being members of the executive. However, there is one such exemption, that is, there is a council of ministers which consists of members of legislature, and this council of ministers form a government. Now, there is a limitation also that according to our constitution, there cannot be more than 15% of members. There has to be less than 15% of members in the council of ministers, which is 10% in case of national capital territory of Delhi. Now coming to the executive. According to Article 74, subsection 2, any advice which is tendered by the Council of Ministers to the President cannot be inquired into a court of law. Further, Article 361 of the Constitution prohibits any criminal action on President of India or governor of any state whenever they are in office. So this protection is extended to executive to make them immune from any judicial action in case they do or discharge their official duties. Now coming to judiciary. Now Article 121 and 211 of the Constitution highlights that the members of judiciary, that is members of Supreme Court or judges of Supreme Court and judges of high courts of our country, their conduct cannot be discussed in the legislature of the country. So you can understand the Constitution of India provides for functional separation, which highlights separation of powers. But there are two different types of separation. For example, in countries like US, there is a rigid separation of power. By rigid separation, I mean that the function of legislature cannot be exercised by executive or functions of the executive cannot be exercised by judiciary. While on the other hand, India's separation of power is not rigid, rather it is flexible because of a fact that there is a significant amount of functional overlap between the three organs of the state. And let me explain you how. First of all, there are certain set of legislative powers which are given to executive. For example, according to Article 73 of the Constitution, any executive action which is passed by the Union Executive, it has the same efficacy of that of law which is passed by Parliament of India. And same is applicable in case of states under the Article 122. Further, whenever the legislature of our country, they are not in session, and if there is a need for a law, the executive have the power to promulgate ordinances in the country, which again have the same efficacy as an act which is passed by state legislatures and parliament. Also, in cases of state emergency under the Article 356 of the Constitution, the legislative powers of a state is vested for a temporary period of time to the president of our country. So this highlights that despite having separation of power, there is a significant amount of legislative power given to the executive of our country. Now coming to the judicial powers which is given to the executive. For example, under Article 323A and 323B, the executive can constitute tribunals to hear matters related to technical matters in our country. And these tribunals can adjudicate issues based on technical matters. So you can understand adjudication of disputes is a prerogative of judiciary. However, under certain circumstances, the executive also have a power to constitute tribunals. Further, in matters conduction related to conducting inquiry on civil servants, Article 311 gives the power to the executive, and also executive such as president has a power to disqualify any legislature for various purposes. So this is what a functional overlap of legislative powers and judicial powers means with the executive in India. Now let us understand the functional overlap with respect to legislature. Now in its day-to-day functioning, the legislature of our country has several judicial powers. For example, if the legislature feels there has been a contempt on the proceedings of the House, the legislature can punish people who are responsible for contempt of legislature. Further, legislature is also is responsible for removing members of various constitutional bodies such as Chief Election Commissioner, Comptroller and Auditor General if they are involved in certain wrongdoings. Also, the legislature, specifically the presiding officer of the house, that is a speaker, he or she can disqualify any member under the anti-defection law. So this is what judicial powers are available to the legislature of our country. Now let us understand the functional overlap with respect to judiciary. Now judiciary is bestowed with certain legislative and executive power also. For example, any law which is any judgment given by the judiciary under the Article 141 has the same effect as a law passed by the parliament or state legislature. For example, in recent history, the Supreme Court highlighted or imposed a taxation on diesel vehicles, which you can understand is a prerogative of a legislature of our country. Further, under Article 141, also the Supreme Court imposed a deadline or say a restriction on opening of alcohol shops on highways of our country. Now, opening or licensing of alcohol shops is a responsibility of executive. But according to powers given under 141, judiciary was able to direct opening or closure of alcohol shops on highways. Further, under Article 142, the article highlights that Supreme Court can undertake any measure in ensuring complete justice. Now, previously, whenever there was an incident of sexual harassment at workplace, it did not have a legal or was not prohibited legally. So there was this legal void in our country. And this legal void was fulfilled by Supreme Court through enactment of Vishakha guidelines under the Article 142, which criminalize the sexual harassment at workplace of women. So this is how there exists a significant amount of functional overlap in our country, which highlights that the separation of power is not rigid, rather it is flexible. Now, this measure of separation of power in our country also has a benefit that it provides for checks and balances of various organs of the state. For example, executive in our country has the legislative control that it can summon, adjourn, and dissolve the legislature, whereas it also exercises some control over the judiciary in the process of appointment of judges, that the judges are only appointed after a report is given by the Intelligence Bureau, which comes under Government of India. Also, the legislature of our country has significant judicial control and executive control. First of all, it ensures accountability of executive through measures such as question hour, debates on the House, as well as passage of budget, which it has the financial control over the government. So this is what the executive control of judiciary means. Further, the legislature, it also exercises some amount of control over country's judiciary. For example, if any constitutional amendment are to be protected from judicial review, the legislature previously put that constitutional amendment under the ninth schedule of our constitution. Further, after many judicial decisions, the legislature of our country has sought to change the basis of the adjudication also. For example, there was this matter related to Shah Bano judgment, which provided for maintenance that should be extended to women belonging to Muslim community. Now, the basis of this judgment was changed subsequently by a law which was passed by the parliament of our country. And the same was the case in matters related to reservation in cases of promotion. Further, the members of judiciary, they can also be impeached or removed from office based on various circumstances by the legislature of our country. So this is how the legislature of our country exercises control over judiciary as well as that of executive. Further, judiciary also exercises checks and balances over the other organs of the state through a process called judicial review, where it can uh, undertake the efficacy and legality of the actions which are done by executive and legislature. And in recent times, the Supreme Court of our country has extended the powers which are given under the judicial review. Because you can understand, under Article 21 of the Constitution, it highlighted that there should be a procedure which is established by law. So any judgment or any action by executive and legislature, it was previously reviewed only in the cases if it was not enacted following a proper procedure. However, this reading has been significantly extended by the Supreme Court of our country, that it highlighted that the Supreme Court will not just judge the actions of executive and legislature based on procedure established also, but it will also consider the fairness of the action under the provision called due process of law. Further, the judiciary of India evolved what is called as a basic structural doctrine in the 73 judgment of Keshwananda Bharti case, where the Supreme Court of the country highlighted that the Parliament cannot amend the constitution totally. Rather, the powers of the legislature is limited based on protection of basic structure of our constitution. Also, the judiciary has taken several measures to enact electoral reforms in our country to reduce the menace of criminalization in our country's politics. So this is how is the sum total of the concept called separation of power, that in any democratic country the powers of the state is not given to just one organ, rather it is distributed among many organs. And there are two types of separation of power. One is rigid, which is followed in countries like US, and another one is somewhat flexible, which is followed in countries like India. Because in India there is a significant functional overlap in the powers and responsibilities of various organs. However, on the other side, there are certain benefits also that this procedure ensures checks and balances among various organs of the state. So, with this, we move to second set of articles. Now, the next article, which you can see, appeared in the text and context section of the Hindu newspaper. And this article highlights that there is a civil war which has been going on in Sudan for quite a some time. Now, who is involved in the conflict? What are its implications? It is not strictly important from UPSC's perspective. However, what is important is the location of the region and what are the key regions of Sudan which have been affected by the conflict. And why am I saying this? Because questions have been appearing on regions which are in news. So, in this regard, let us understand or let us solve the practice question. Now, Darfur and Kordofan recently in news are related to which country? And the answer of this question is Sudan, because Darfur is this region which is located in the western part of Sudan, whereas Kordofan is located in the central part of Sudan, and this is where the civil war is happening. Understood. So, this is what is important from this particular news, that the regions which are involved in conflict, such as Darfur and Kordofan. Now let us quickly move to another article which again appeared in the Hindu newspaper, and this article highlights that Indian Air Force it plans to procure 12 early warning aircraft. Now various military hardware and developments in space are important from prelims perspective. Case in point, this 2018 question on Indian regional navigation satellite system, and this belongs to general science part of our prelims syllabus. Now, in this regard, let us understand what is this airborne early warning and control system, which are also known as early warning aircrafts. Now, as the name suggests, these are aircrafts which are able to warn us about the enemy movement. And why is that possible? Because these systems are uh, using advanced radars for detection and tracking of hostile enemy actions, their aircrafts, missiles in deep inside the enemy territory. Because on one hand, there are ground-based radar which can uh, track developments across a certain geographical extent, but this is fixed on the ground. Rather, on the other hand, when you install radar systems on an aircraft which has an ability to fly over a large part of our country, it enables our air force to track movements even across way beyond our borders. And this is what these early warning aircrafts are able to do, because they use advanced communication equipment which share real-time information data with operators on board different aircrafts and also on ground to the communication center. And using this data, communication center is able to guide fighter aircrafts to interpret enemy actions. And the significance of this development is that in Indian context, these systems can play a key role in maintaining our national airspace security, especially from our neighbors such as China and Pakistan. Now, currently, India operates two types of early warning systems. First is indigenously developed Netra system, which is developed by DRDO in collaboration with Indian Air Force, and this system is mounted on a Brazilian-made Embraer jets. Now, this system provides coverage of 20 to 40 degrees coverage of airspace, and the range of this system is limited to 200 kilometers. And a more advanced system is Falcon Airborne Warning System, which is an Israeli made system and it is installed over an Russian origin aircraft. Now, this AVAX system is an advanced system of AVAX which provides 360-degree radar coverage and has a more range, that is that of 400 kilometers. Now, this development that is seen in the news highlights that government will procure or Indian Air Force will procure 12 new aircrafts, six of which will be these Netra aircrafts, and another six will be the second version of these Netra aircraft, which will be mounted over an Airbus A321 aircraft, which the Indian Air Force has procured from Air India. Understood? So this was the airborne early warning system. Now let us solve the practice question. Consider the following statements with reference to airborne early warning and control systems. The first is that these systems are primarily used for short range detection. Now pay close attention to this word short range detection because it is incorrect, because it is done to assess long range detection as much as 400 kilometers. So the first statement here is incorrect. The second statement, the systems, they can directly neutralize the enemy aircraft after detection in the Indian airspace. Again, incorrect, because they cannot directly neutralize, rather communicate the movements of enemy aircraft to other fighter jets who can then intercept these enemy aircrafts. The third system, Netra, is an indigenous system which is developed by DRDO, and this information is correct because I have highlighted here. So as only third statement was correct, hence option B is the right answer. Now moving to the last article of the day, and this article is about a person who not just does action movies and drama movies, but is also known as the OG disco dancer of our country. Yes, you guessed it right. This information or news article is about Mr. Chakravarti because he has been awarded Dadasaheb Phalke Award. Now, important awards by the government of India are important from prelims perspective because this question appeared in the year 2021, and also this development relates to art and culture of India. Hence, it is important from prelims perspective. Now, this Dada Saheb Phalke Award was instituted in the year 1969 in honor of Dundiraj Govind Phalke, who was widely known as the father of Indian cinema. Now, he became famous because he directed India's first full length feature film called Raja Harishchandra back in the year 1930. That was more than 110 years ago. Sorry, sorry. Further, over his career, which spanned for more than 19 years, Mr. Phalke, he produced and directed some total of 95 feature films and 27 short films. So, this Dadasaheb Phalke Award is given under his name, and it is India's highest award in the field of cinema, which is presented annually by the Directorate of Film Festival, and this organization was set up by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Now, this award is given to people who have contributed greatly and outstandingly to the growth and development of Indian cinema, and the awardees, they are selected by a committee of eminent personality belonging to the film industry itself. Now, this award comprises of a Swan Kamal, which is a medallion, a shawl, and as a cash prize of rupees 10 lakhs. Now, the first recipient of this award was actress Devika Rani, who was acknowledged as the first lady of Indian cinema. Understood. So, based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. With reference to Dadasaheb Phalke Award, consider the following statement. It is the highest award in the field of Indian cinema. Again, correct, as I've highlighted here. The Directorate of Film Festivals provides or presents this award every 2 years, which is incorrect because it is presented annually. The third statement, Prithviraj Kapoor was the first recipient of this award, recognized for his role in the first sound film Alamara. It is incorrect because it was given to Devika Rani here. Now, the statement Directorate of Film Festival works as a part of Ministry of Culture, again incorrect because it functions as a part of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Now, statement second, third, and fourth are incorrect, and the question asks us to highlight which of these statements are not correct. Understood? So we have to identify incorrect statement, that are 2, 3, and 4. Hence, option C here is the right answer to this practice question. So with this, we conclude our today's session of Daily News Simplified. It was great hosting Daily News Simplified, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. sharp. Until then, I bid you a very good night.